Silksong has consumed my soul. So I was introduced to Hollow Knight a few years ago by a friend who is far more into video games than I. And usually when we hang out, it's him playing a game and me giving colorful commentary. Ordinarily, I play games to relax. I get enough torment from day-to-day life. And so I tend to play games for their stories, their characters, and their vibes, which allowed me to enjoy the subtle storytelling and gorgeous artwork of Hollow Knight as I watched my friend get murdered by saw trap gauntlets dozens of times over. Yet, as I sat there watching him be viciously sawed, mauled, and brutalized from the comfort of my laptop screen, I thought, if he's willing to die over and over, and over, and over, why aren't I? For those uninitiated or who only know about these games via cultural osmosis and memes, Hollow Knight is a 2D action platformer developed and released by Team Cherry in 2017. You're a little spooky bug boy going on adventures into the ruins of an underground bug kingdom, uncovering the mystery of how it fell and protecting whatever remains from its haunting legacy. It's very cute and fun, but also deeply disturbing, quite frightening, and at times, soul-crushing. This Hollow contains multitudes. Hollow Knight offers dozens of hours of content, especially now that all its DLC is packed in with the original, and for Dirtmouth cheap. Don't tell Sly.
Hello, I like money.
And naturally, folks were excited for the sequel, starring fan-favorite boss turned ally from the original game. Hornet, she of the bad bitches, harbinger of the Hegale, wearer of Adidas, and reliever of Get Good. Team Cherry, being a team of 3 Australian dweebs powered by dreams and sadism, took their sweet time working on Silksong. Originally, it was going to be another DLC for Hollow Knight, but eventually became a beast so ferocious and so expansive, it kinda had to be its own game. The hiatus brain rot was strong with these poor saps. Not me though. Silksong, at long goddamn last, came out in September of 2025 and immediately took over my life. For context, I had been going through some of the older Tales of games at that point, but sorry Legendia and Rebirth, Hornet demands my undivided attention. And dear God, I adore Silksong. It is a far crueler game than Hollow Knight, with more emphasis on action and aggressive strategies, and yet here I am, vacuuming up rosaries and chilling with my bell beast. I'd already scripted a Hollow Knight video way back when, but procrastination and juggling too many projects has led to it rotting in the abyss along with all the sibling shades. So I guess I'll just talk about how much I love both games now in one video. And you cannot stop me. We are going to talk gameplay, story, characters, not in a here's the story of the games explained kind of way, because a lot of lore nerds have done that already, and way better than I ever could, but more in an informal, oh my higher beings, I need to gush about this to someone kind of vibe. Think Internet Pit Stop, but gayer and less talented. For reference, the footage on display is from my most recent Hollow Knight playthrough and my third playthrough of Silksong. So they're me playing now that I know these games far better and have honed my lack of skill. But trust me, these games have slaughtered me many a time, especially Silksong. And yes, I enjoyed it every time. Before we begin, ciao! My name's Thomas, aka the Unicorn of War, and I talk about nerdy shit I enjoy far too much on this channel. I like to discuss what parts of media I enjoy, what doesn't work for me, and just yeeting it out into the world. I mostly talk about Winx Club here on the channel, but I also like to talk about Avatar and Korra, Ruby, and the Tales of series. If that sounds interesting to you, then be sure to subscribe and ring that bell for notifications, because YouTube hates creators. Do it. Ring it for the Bell Beast. Ring it for Bellheart, for the glory of Farloom. And also, if you're willing and able, please consider pledging your support for myself and the channel over on Patreon. You'll get access to early videos, Patreon exclusive videos, the private Union of War Discord server, and one-time benches while you're slaving away in the underworks. Look, rosaries are hard to come by, okay? Now, without further ado, let the chaos commence. From the very beginning, Hollow Knight doesn't hold your hand. You, a weird little skullboy who is both threateningly cute and deeply disturbing, don't look into his eyes, you'll get lost in the void, are dropped into a ruined world that was once a thriving metropolis of bugs. Once you make your way through the tutorial area, you find yourself in the quiet town of Dirtmouth. Sitting on the surface above the fallen kingdom of Hallownest, this town is mostly abandoned, covered in perpetual darkness and an eerie mist. The only resident is one Mr. Elderbug, who must be protected at all costs.
I love the young people.
He's perfectly content staying up here in Dirtmouth. Even if it's empty and lonely, he can't be bothered with all the nonsense of the complex caverns below. Which, fair. He's just an old dude who's had his share of nonsense and would just like to be left alone to enjoy some peace, thank you very much. All he asks is for the occasional conversation to keep him company. Because apparently if you go through the game ignoring him, he'll start waving to get your attention. Which I had no clue, because I always make an effort to chat with him. What kind of monster are you to ignore him? Heading down into the well from the ring, you find not a homicidal ghost girl, but the Forgotten Crossroads. From here, you're open to just wander wherever you like. The game doesn't give you objectives or missions. Instead, it's up to you to explore areas and decide what you want to do for yourself. Wherever you want to go, trust it, because one way or another, you'll figure things out yourself. There's no wrong way to go about exploring Hallownest. For instance, you will probably come across Cornifer, a map-making bug you will encounter in most areas. Or as I like to call him, Cornflower. Giving him Geo, the game's currency, you can get your hands on an admittedly incomplete map. Going back up to Dirtmouth, you'll find his shop open, run by his wife Iselda, who is in mood.
Bapanada.
She's grouchy, but it's because she wishes Cornifer wasn't spending all his time away exploring, and she wonders if maybe she should be joining him more often. She can give you maps if you wind up missing Cornifer, along with little icons of important environments, or shell stamps you can place manually to mark areas of interest. If you want to complete your map, you'll need to explore the world yourself, and it will automatically update when you rest on a bench. Provided you've bought a quill from Iselda, of course. A bug's gotta make it in this ruined economy somehow, okay? You'll also likely discover the Stagways. These are essentially fast travel points, a network of tunnels running throughout Hallownest, but they've been sealed and long abandoned. Once you open them, you'll meet the last stag, the reliable dude who will personally escort you. Like the name implies, he is, allegedly, the last of his kind, but he's still dedicated to helping people get around, especially you, the one who has reawakened his sense of purpose by reopening the Stagways. Once you do this, you can go back to the Dirtmouth Stagway to open it back up, and you'll start seeing the town light up more and more as more residents return. It'll never be a bustling metropolis, but it doesn't need to be. This is your home base. It's a bit sad, but it's also strangely cozy in that sadness. It's safe and it's full of familiar faces. There's not much here besides little chats and small shops, but I usually come back here if I need a bit of a mental break from exploring. As you make your way through Hallownest, you'll also come across grubs, who've been trapped in glass jars by a weirdo. And weirdo is an understatement here. But the point is that you can break the jars to rescue them. They'll then head back home to their nest, returning to the grub father, who beforehand was crying endlessly for his lost children. He'll give you rewards in exchange for saving grubs, but honestly, growing up on collectathons has prepared me for this moment. I will save them solely because it feels cathartic, and also because grubs are cute. And then there's Quirrell, a traveling masked nerd who's found in various areas of interest. You can first encounter him in the Temple of the Black Egg, where you can see his mask kind of resembles one of the masks on the temple's etchings. He seems to know a lot about the myths and legends surrounding this ruined kingdom. Like the rest of the story, the game kind of lets you put the pieces together of his character yourself, but I found myself caring deeply for Quirrell. For a game set in a fallen civilization, there's no shortage of lovable, memorable characters. I've honestly come to love all of them, even the annoying, insufferable, untalented, unworthy, unlovable Zote.
Fuck you!
Seriously, why do I keep saving him? Like, I know it's the right thing to do, but goddamn, I enjoy knocking his ass around in the Coliseum of Fools. And with that name, it very much should be his home. There is so much charm and personality to this world. Yes, the atmosphere can be eerie, even unnerving, and a bit lonely. But there's still this strong sense of wanderlust, this desire to explore every nook and cranny of this place, meet everyone you possibly can, and save as many of them as you can. F in the chat from Isla.
Viola, stop biting! You're gonna get infected! Oh god, she can't hear me! She's wearing AirPods!
As someone who personally hates travel, I strangely find myself feeling empowered by Hollow Knight, as silly as it sounds. It gives me this feeling that no matter what dark, abandoned lands I find myself in, or whatever treacherous leaps and buzzsaws stand in my way, I can make my way forward. Sure, I'll fail. A lot, and death is basically guaranteed in this game. I don't know how people do Steel Soul mode, but there's no shame in that. It's something to take pride in, even, because it means you're learning. No matter your stumblings, you can always come out the other side, providing you keep trying. And of course, you learn how and why you failed.
If at first you don't succeed, find out why.
Which brings me to a character I very much adore. Hornet. She's a bit of a nemesis as you make your way through Hallow Nest. Mysterious, very much ready to kick your ass at a moment's notice, and always challenging you to test your worthiness in whatever your mission is, given you have to piece it together yourself as you go through the game, you know. And all of this is reflected in the gameplay through the boss fights, including Hornets, and really all the enemy design, boss design, and environmental design. So in Hollow Knight, Hornet has killed me dozens of times. Don't blame me, I haven't kept track. You fight her a couple of times in the game, and dear God, her battle cries have been seared into my memory. And the memory of every fan of these games. She'll dash at you, both on the ground and in air. She'll throw her needle at you. She'll even cover the area in spikes to make jumping around her a goddamn nightmare. I am an admitted button masher, but I can also be evasive. My tendency is to get as much distance from the enemy as I can, or to go around and attack from behind. I even find myself jumping around a lot to try and dodge an attack I assume is coming. And boy oh boy, did that get me killed a lot in this game. Enemies, including bosses, have clearly telegraphed attacks through their animations and sounds. If you take the time to study them, you'll learn what attack is coming next and how to best avoid it. I've actually found that trying to run away from an enemy is a waste 9 times out of 10, because they'll be able to catch up and kick your ass no matter what you do. Like Hornet's jumping attack. When she leaps, she'll just automatically dash to wherever you are, which means just trying to jump away from her is running towards your doom. Or her needle throw. The best bet isn't to run, because the needle's gonna get you anyway. It is actually better to run towards Hornet, leaping over the needle, getting a hit in, and then running back before the needle shoots back. Unnecessary jumps in general is a good way to make sure Hornet kills you quickly. Given how acrobatic her movements are, she owns the air, so why go into her territory? This also helps to teach patience. During my own experience, I found myself often getting frustrated as I would get hit and watch my health dwindle. This would make me reckless, which in turn would only seal my demise. I'd even think, oh, I only have 2 or 1 mask left, I might as well just throw in the towel. Cause in my mind, I would believe you'd need a perfect, flawless, hitless run to ensure victory. But no. Victory is still possible even if you're on the ropes at first. You can get your health shredded down to 1 mask and then pick yourself back up and win the fight if you're careful enough. I've even found that on repeat playthroughs, the bosses have become far less difficult because of my knowledge of how they work. When I die, it's usually just because I'm getting frustrated again and giving up preemptively. For instance, first run through, Hornet's second boss fight killed me dozens upon dozens of times, and it took me several days to best her. Second playthrough, I beat her first try, and that was while I was nauseous on a goddamn ferry. Usually when it comes to game difficulty, it can be its own challenge to overcome the shame of sucking. But of course you're going to be bad at first, because you're still learning, you're new to this. The key is to understand what you're dealing with, understand your failings, and striving to improve your own patience with yourself. With that mentality, no matter how much you stumble, success will be inevitable. Some of my other favorite bosses, the Mantis Lords. There's this area in the game home to a village of mantises, and they are deadly motherfuckers. They're essentially a warrior tribe, and making your way to their village's depths, you can challenge the 3 ruling sisters. You'll fight one at first, and then the remaining 2 simultaneously, the latter proving to reinforce what you've learned from the first phase. It can be intimidating at first, but once you understand the rhythm of their movements, you can easily best even 2 lords at once. When the lord dashes, jump over her. When she appears above you, run either way before she stabs you. When she hops on the side of the arena, she'll throw her weapon as a boomerang. Just make sure that when you leap over it or run under it, you're not running into its return path. There's also Nosk, who,
Fuck this shit, I'm out. Fuck this shit, I'm out. No thanks.
oh dear god, this is horrific. It's a creature from the depths of Hallownest that mimics you at first, then lures you into its lair, and tries to trample you like a spider horse.
Bad horse, bad horse, bad horse, bad horse. He rides across the nation, the thoroughbred of sin.
Again, the key is to jump over the charges, stay away from the center platform, and when it runs to the ceiling to drop projectiles, hide in the corner like a bitch. And then run when you hear the screech before it hops back down to crush your skull. Even the platforming teaches you this. The areas become more and more treacherous as you head deeper into the kingdom's corpse, with collapsible platforms and hazards such as acid, thorns, and spiky pink crystals of death. Nowhere is that more prominent than the White Palace. Yes, this place is gorgeous, but it is also filled with buzzsaws. This place has traumatized all of us. But again, it's a test of patience and observation. Throughout the game, you receive not only movement upgrades, but also charms, which can be equipped at benches to provide certain buffs. You have to be selective with the charms you choose, given you only have a certain number of notches to equip them with. Apparently, you can apply too many and become over-charmed, which I think, yes, gives you more charms, but also means you take more damage or something. When I'm exploring, I usually go for the Wanderer's Compass to see where I am on the map, either the Long Nail or the Mark of Pride to extend my range when attacking, and then some charms designed to increase the amount of soul you get when attacking enemies. You see that big bowl of weird white stuff next to the tiny masks? That's soul, which is energy that you can use to cast spells and also heal. In my experience, it is best to heal immediately before you're down to a low number of masks, because you'll get more soul anyway by striking enemies. I also tend to avoid charms that provide lifeblood, which are little tiny blue masks that give you more health, but also make it impossible to heal once you lose them. Because when you break it down, you have way more chances by gathering soul and healing than you do from unhealable masks. Charms can be bought at certain shops, but also discovered through Hallownest, incentivizing exploration. One charm that is a lifesaver in White Palace is Hive Blood. It is a must-have, since it regenerates health you've lost provided you don't get hit immediately. Very useful for platforming challenges where you can take long pauses, again forcing you to be patient before continuing. That said, I still have not attempted the Path of Pain.
He's weak.
Major pussy. Not the good kind.
It scares me, and admittedly, knowing there's not much of a reward at the end, I'm not eager to go for it. I mean, I know eventually I'm probably going to out of morbid curiosity and self-hatred, but that's a problem for future me. Honestly, Hollow Knight is one of the few games I enjoy being tormented in actively, and it is because it's so well crafted and very much appeals to me for how it forces you to be patient and observant. It feels rewarding to be able to more easily glide through areas and encounters that once made me want to grind my teeth into dust. Now, these games are absolutely gorgeous. The simple character designs are memorable, endearing, and easily readable. And I'm utterly astonished that the game was also able to make the domain of bugs beautiful. Like, bugs are fucking hideous creatures, and yet, look at these little doofuses. Look at how diverse these underground environments are. Makes me think of all the games with 20 identical cave environments because, Lord, there is no excuse for how boring these places are. But Hollow Knight said, "Bitch, our environments will slay." And slay they do. Slay almost as much as the enemies will slay you. So starting with Hollow Knights, Hallownest is divided into different regions composed of individual rooms, and each region has its own aesthetic, color palette, enemies, and platforming quirks. Forgotten Crossroads starts out relatively basic, but still has its own charm through the somber atmosphere, the deep purples and blues, and its hauntingly gorgeous music. It's the perfect stomping grounds to get you acquainted with the game's mechanics. Green Path, like the name suggests, is filled with lush vegetation, moss creatures and knights, and pools of acid. It's beautiful and tranquil, but a bit more treacherous than the Forgotten Crossroads. Fungal Wastes is, you guessed it, filled with mushrooms and spore-themed creatures, along with the aforementioned Mantis tribe. It's a bit of a difficulty spike compared to the previous areas. Not one of my favorites, but I do appreciate the color coding present through the game, since Fungal Waste is made unique not just by its theming, but also the orangey tint. And even the acid kind of has this blue hue to contrast more with the orange. Satisfies my inner color wheel, bitch. Fog Canyon rests between areas and winds up being a bit of an untamed, mysterious frontier for a while, since you can't reach Cornifer to get the map for it until you get upgrades from way later in the game. It can be tranquil if you take your time, since enemies won't go out of their way to hurt you, but traversing isn't exactly easy here either. Just don't touch anything orange or hit the big jellyfish, unless you know you can get enough distance before their payback hits. Hits faster than the Imperial Boomerang. The midpoint of the game, and arguably the fan-favorite location, is the City of Tears, the crown jewel of the Fallen Kingdom. It's filled with immense spires and elegant towers, all sitting in a perpetual rain created by water leaking through from the cavern ceiling, from another environment I absolutely love. This is really where you get that sense of awe and grandeur, where you realize the immense scope of Hollow Knight. Beneath the city are the royal waterways, further proof that sewer levels are the fucking worst. It's not a terrible area, but it's definitely disgusting and unpleasant, especially because of all the worm and maggot enemies that will come back from the dead just to gross you out as they eat your face. It'll lead you to some new areas, but also links back to the fungal wastes. I just really adore how interconnected all of these different areas are. The number of routes that you can take through the world really helps the game from feeling stale and overly linear. Crystal Peaks is still cavernous, but this time above ground, and cutely pink. But don't let the pretty crystals deceive you. This is a place of pain and suffering. By far, it's got some of the most treacherous platforming in the game, in no small part due to these crystal bugs that shoot lasers. Wild shit. Coming here, you're also likely to fall into the Resting Grounds, a relatively peaceful area where you'll meet the Moth Seer, who will give you the Dream Nail, enabling you to read the thoughts of others, collect essence, and encounter the ghosts still wandering the kingdom's ruins. There's Kingdom's Edge, a frontier land which emphasizes verticality, covered in the snow-like remains of a giant worm. Huge points for finding a way to integrate a seemingly snowy environment in a game where that really should never have been possible. You may notice falling bodies of warriors as you venture here, since the top of this area is home to the Colosseum of Fools. Also hidden here is the Hive, a buzzing beehive of burnt ambers, golden hues, and horrifying abominations that will turn themselves into giant spears just to kill you. Far in the depths is Deep Nest, an area you'll likely encounter by accident without realizing it. It is a spider's den, incredibly dark and terrifying due to the freaky strings in the music, the spiders crawling over the lens, and the enemies that appear out of nowhere or are resurrected by parasites to attack you. And trust me, you do not want to end up here without buying yourself a Lumafly lantern first. Sandwiched between Green Path and Deep Nest is the Queen's Gardens. Like the name implies, it was the private garden of Hollow Nest's queen,
White Lady!
and is now primarily occupied by traders of the Mantis tribe who have fallen to the infection ravaging the kingdom. At the very bottom of the map is the ancient basin, where the Pale King's castle once stood, removed from the City of Tears. It's not as outright terrifying as Deep Nest, but it still has this foreboding, somber quality that makes it feel like you're trespassing on sacred, forbidden land. Hallowed land, one could say. And even further down, once you receive the King's brand, is the Abyss, a realm of shadow and darkness that is also a birthplace. The experience of heading down into the Abyss for the first time and then returning once you know the full truth and climbing out to have those suspicions confirmed? Words cannot describe how haunting yet arrestingly beautiful the experience of heading down here and back up is. The entire game makes you wonder just what else you're missing. Always wondering what the next new land is and what secrets it may hold. Just as you get used to one landscape, you encounter an entirely new one. So it becomes impossible to get sick of a location. Well, except for Deep Nest, but only because it's just that freaky and fucking disgusting. Ew. As I've said, Hollow Knight doesn't quite hold your hand. It'll give you everything that you need to know in order to understand the story, but it also expects you to piece it together yourself. For a casual player, it's enough to keep them interested and chugging along, but if you want to dive deeper and learn, there's no shortage of depth for you to get lost in. The Hollow Knight fandom, as such, is highly dedicated to cataloging each and every secret in the game and chronicling all of its intricate lore and history. And if you want to learn more about that, I highly recommend Mossbag's video dedicated to Hollow Knight lore, which explains the entire story, but, does so in a very entertaining fashion. This hands-off approach not only respects the player's intelligence, but further encourages that sense of wanderlust. You want to uncover this kingdom's secrets, how it fell, what exactly this infection is, and what role you, tiny ghost skullboy, have in all of this. And I think it's a strong testament that while the game is quite hands-off, most people still have no issue putting the pieces together as they play. And even without fully voiced dialogue, as the game seemingly has its own made-up language the characters speak in, that doesn't stop the story from being emotionally engaging. My heart aches for the characters' woes and likewise sings for the small comforts and victories they find. It's honestly inspiring to see these characters finding little joys in such a dark, scary, melancholic world. Definitely not relatable. Not at all. Though the game is dark, it is still sincere and full of heart. It allows for these cute, saccharine moments to hit much harder, and thus makes the game and its cast far more endearing. Now, I'm gonna give a brief rundown of the story, but by no means is this a comprehensive lore analysis. Again, go to Professor Mossbag for that shit. I don't have a PhD, I'm poor. I'm just gonna give you enough context to get your heart ripped out in the hopes that it'll make you jump down the rabbit hole. Long ago, Hollow Nest was founded by the Pale King, but his kingdom fell to a horrible infection that killed bugs, then reanimated them, turning them into hostile enemies that we encounter now. The infection's telltale sign is that gross orangey look in enemies' eyes, as well as orange pustules of... I don't even want to know what's in those things. You, protagonist Skullboy, are a vessel, an entity created to combat and seal away the infection. This process, however, was quite fucked, and definitely not kosher for the Geneva Conventions. Again, I won't go into detail, but it took a lot of trial and error to make you. And you're not even the favorite vessel. But you were crafted from a primordial darkness, known as Void, in order to stand against the blinding, dreamy light of the infection. The previous vessel, the Hollow Knight, rests inside the Temple of the Black Egg, his body housing the infection's source to seal it away. Unfortunately, that seal is now failing, and the infection is returning to destroy the remnants of Hollow Nest. And so your goal is to break the seal of the Dreamers, locking the Hollow Knight within the temple, and then go inside and kill him so you can take his place as the new host of the infection. Of course, this means that one day you will be in the Hollow Knight's place, and another will likely have to slay you to take your place, lest the infection fully break free. It's giving Encanto a little bit with that generational trauma. We don't talk about Hollow Knight. We don't talk about Hollow. Oh no. Alternatively, if you unlock certain requirements, you get another arguably better ending. Fighting the Hollow Knight, you venture into its dreams as Hornet holds him back, where you find the true source of the infection, the Radiance. Won't go into detail, but basically, she's a goddess who really wants to be remembered, and in the process has created the infection to make it everybody else's problem. Gods are such attention whores, I swear. Destroying her, the infection is fully eradicated. You die as well, your purpose fulfilled, but the infection will never return to require another sacrifice, and the people can live in peace, and maybe even one day rebuild their kingdom. Or not, I don't know. Seems like a lot of work. But either way, they are now free to make that choice without the fear created by the infection. Except Mila. I mean, there probably is some way to finish the game without her dying. God, I hope so. On the surface, it's a simple story, but there's just so much tragedy under the surface if you want to dive in further. And I very much appreciate that. is an approach that trusts the audience, but rather than burdening them by taking lazy shortcuts or not giving any thought to characters, it instead finds ways to engage the audience without making them feel like they're doing any work themselves. And now, Silksong. Silksong, like Hollow Knight, doesn't hold your hand. In fact, it will happily take your hand and shove it into the wood chipper if you're not careful. You don't need to be familiar with the original one to follow along here, but it probably would be best if you did, just so you know the pain that you're getting in for, because this game is far crueler. Here, Hornet has been captured by a strange group of robed bugs, who are very much giving cult. After breaking free and breaking all of our bones, we make our way to the shrine above, where Weird Snail Lady gives us a bit of context. The bugs that captured us are from the Citadel, which rules over the kingdom of Farloom. And now we are making our way to the top to figure out who brought us here and why. We learn in the nearby town of Bone Bottom that we're not the only ones making this journey. The bugs of Farloom, known as pilgrims, are forced to endure a long, dangerous climb towards the Citadel. And most of them ain't making it, sad to say. In fact, most of them are going to turn into dried out husks, paving the way for future victims. I mean pilgrims. Farloom is high-key a capitalist scam, but that's for another time. You have to pay for benches. Benches. Like Hollow Knight, there are a few different paths up to the Citadel. Silksong is split into 2 acts, and a secret optional 3rd act for you fellow freaks, with Act 1 being the climb toward the Citadel, and Act 2 being the Citadel. There's a bit more structure here compared to the first game. You've got a list of missions in your menu, including job requests from different bugs throughout Farloom, known as wishes. Along the way, we meet several colorful characters whomst I would die for. Sharma, the precious pilgrim whose music brings me joy in the midst of utter darkness and despair. Chakra, a fierce warrior who believes in speaking to us on our level, quite literally. Grindel, the weird little freak loser thief who gets far too close for comfort. The Fleas, a traveling caravan who ask us to find their cute little missing flea dogs. And Garmond and Zaza, an adventurous duo whose sad fate definitely doesn't haunt me at night. Oh, and of course our means of travel, the Bell Beast. Early on in the journey, you encounter this beast trapped in silk. Once you get a silk skill to destroy it with your needle, you battle the beast, and upon its defeat, it becomes your pet, helping you travel through the bellways across Farloom, which is nice, because Farloom itself certainly is not going to help you. Farloom's main form of currency is rosary beads, since it operates on the faith of the pilgrims. The problem is, rosaries are hard to come by. Most of the delirious pilgrims who attack you on the way up barely have any, and monsters don't have any, because, you know, they're monsters, duh. And when you arrive at benches, places where you can rest and recover your health, you have to pay rosaries to use them. Some of them are even one-time use benches. Fucking evil. It's kind of obvious that this place has been designed on a lie. They don't want pilgrims climbing their way up to the Citadel, obvious from all the arduous enemy-ridden paths and the godforsaken section that is the blasted steps. And even if they reach the Citadel, they will either be murdered by its guard dog, the last judge, or be sent to toil away in the Underworks, an industrial setting beneath the Citadel that keeps it running. If this ain't realizing the American dream is a scam, I don't know what is. Of course, there is an alternate route into the Citadel, which is arguably even crueler. You must head up through the bleak, rainy land of Greymoor, up through roads of rusty cages and broken benches, through the most evil area of the game where the environment itself is trying to poison and kill you, and then through banshee-filled labyrinthine fog hell. You go through Silent Hill twice, both Rusty Otherworld and Fogtown, all to fight wannabe Phantom of the Opera here and break in through the back door. I love this game, genuinely. Now, you might be wondering, why is the Citadel like this? Are they also ruled by billionaire tech oligarchs with god complexes and mommy issues? Well, yes, actually. We'll get there later. You know, the point is that much like the gameplay, Silksong's environmental storytelling feels far more hostile and pointed. As I've mentioned, Silksong is far more focused on action than its predecessor. Hornet is a highly skilled, highly trained fighter with acrobatic movements that make the knight look like a certified chump. As such, Hornet has far more resources at her disposal, but likewise her enemies are far smarter, far more agile, and far more brutal. Congrats, you're a nimble glass cannon now. Like the knight, Hornet wields a needle, but is far faster, and with a 45-degree angle air attack that has sent many a tumbling into deadly thorn pits. If that's not to your liking, then you can gather crests, which change the kind of attacks you dish out. If you miss how the knight played and want to hit enemies faster, you can go with the Wanderer's crest. If you want to have more weapons at your disposal, you can go with the Architect crest. There's a bit more freedom here compared to the charm system, especially with the tool system. Tools, like charms, alter your abilities and give you certain buffs or perks. And look, they're divided by use into colored categories. How this satisfies my inner organizer. Red tools are weapons that deal out more damage than your needle, blue tools are primarily defensive, and yellow tools affect your movement and navigation. It's up to you to experiment both with crests and tools to see what you like best, or what suits a particular situation. For example, a setup that's great for exploring one area might not be best for another, or for a boss fight, and certain crests have different numbers of slots for differently colored tools. Again, Architect crest is best for people who want to shred enemies with lots and lots of red tools. Blood red tools. For the record, I'm a Wanderer crest girly. I just figured the Architect girlies would appreciate that. And we've also got silk skills, which technically count as white tools. These are special abilities which use your little spool of silk up there in the corner. And speaking of silk, like soul, it regenerates as you attack enemies. Except here, you need a certain amount of silk before you can heal, or bind as the game calls it. And when you do, you heal for 3 masks instead of just 1. In Hollow Knight, I would tend to heal as soon as I had even 1 damage, because it was almost always best to use your soul up before you lost too much health, especially if you're gonna get more soul anyhow by hitting the thing. In Silksong though, I found myself being a bit more wary of when exactly I heal. More so, how to make the most out of my silk binding compared to how much damage I could afford to take. Like, am I really gonna bind when I only have like 1 or 2 masks gone, or am I gonna wait till like I can do a full 3 heal? And that's even more important here, considering many enemies, even normal ones, strike you for 2 masks worth of damage. Fucking bastards. Again, you've got more in your arsenal, so your enemies need to counterbalance the scales. The last thing you want to be in these games is thoughtless, and this ensures that you never feel invincible or completely safe. First example, The Last Judge. On my first playthrough, this fight was a goddamn nightmare. I must have died upwards of 20, possibly 30 times before I finally won, and my second to last attempt, she exploded as I beat her, killing me, meaning I had to fight her all over again. Absolutely traumatizing. But you know what? I know your secrets now, you heinous bitch. The first phase is easy. She has this annoying ass flail that she likes to swing around. The first move is her spinning it around herself, and the second is her throwing it out, then retracting it. Once you learn the animations for both, it's simple. Either move back a bit for the spin attack, or duck under the throw, and then hop as she retracts it. Personally, I hate the throw attack because I tend to instinctively jump or run away, which only makes me run into the flail. Second phase, now there's fire, because why the fuck not? The flail explodes, so when she throws it, mind the combustion. When she spins, mind the rings of flame, which thankfully telegraph their zone of incineration before they melt your face off. When she jumps and slams down, waves of fire shoot out on either side, so hop over them. When she dashes at you, jump over her, pogoing if you can, but stay close to her, both to hit her and to avoid the fire pillars of certain doom that spawn along her path. God, she's so extra. Imagine needing this much fire to cover for your lack of personality. And lack of hospitality. This is how Farloom treats its guests? Disgusting. There's one moment in the middle of the fight where she releases rings upon rings upon rings of flame as she spins her flail. Thankfully, this is a one-time thing, and afterwards, it'll be the usual amount of rings. Just keep a clear head, remember the moveset, bada bing, bada boom, she's dead and you're on to the Citadel. Oh, and make sure you keep your distance when beating your second phase so, you don't get caught up as she explodes and then have to do this all over again. I'm not bitter. Why would I be bitter? And even that infamous bile water section can be made a bit easier by getting the Wreath of Purity from the putrefied ducks, which can help you to resist the poison maggot waters, and by finding the hidden bench that cuts the run back in half, because that normal run back is fucking hell. Fuck that gauntlet though. It's not impossible, but it's cruel. Very, very, very cruel. Perhaps it shows just how utterly broken I am by these games, but I never thought Silksong was unfair, just fucking mean. Every time I died, my first thought was, I'ma get this fucker. And that fucker I indeed got. I got all them fuckers. Silksong just solidified the lesson Hollow Knight taught me. Failure is a teacher, and when in doubt, step up your game. Or in plainer language,
Get the...
as much as I love Hollow Nest, I really have to give Farloom her flowers, which cost about 200 rosaries per petal.
Hide the money, y'all. There's poor people around.
With your broke ass.
Silksong not only has more environments, with each one proving larger than those of Hollow Knight, but the areas this time around are far more varied in terms of theme, color palette, and even layout, which tracks given the team's main goal was to find new, interesting ways to have the environment itself kill you. We start off easy in the Moss Grotto. Hollow Knight didn't quite start you off in a proper level, instead opting for a dark path leading to Dirtmouth. Here you have to climb your way through a lush set of caverns filled with little caterpillars and flying freaks, and then vanquish their ugly mother to escape. For as cruel as this game can be, it feels very nice to begin the journey in such a vibrant, seemingly peaceful area. There are 3 towns. Well, technically 4, but Bone Bottom, serving as our first, sets the grim tone of the average bug's terrible life prospects here in Farloom. It's more lively than Dirtmouth, but far less homey, probably because no one is here to stay to help create a small but tight-knit community to protect themselves from the horrors beyond. Instead, the bugs here, known as pilgrims, are preparing for an arduous climb to the Citadel at the top of the kingdom, and given from what we see as we make our journey up, most of them ain't making it, and it doesn't seem like they're meant to. Still, the bugs of Bone Bottom are friendly enough. As sad as I am knowing that they're almost willfully ignorant of the terrible fates the kingdom has woven for them, I still can't help but smile at how friendly most of them are. Like this little doofus who builds us a little nail shard sculpture if we donate to help repair the town. Or Pilby, the second goodest boy, who I didn't know he could die. You know, I was watching a Let's Play and I saw someone lose Pilby and then just attend his funeral where they chuck him down the pit and he falls to where you started the game, and my heart just fucking snapped in two. You know, like Pilby when the Skull Tyrant ran through him. Oh my god. I'm sorry, Pilby. I'm so sorry. This is how I cope. The Marrow and the Deep Docks match this more macabre air a bit better. There's not much to say about the Marrow since it's basically a lot of caves with bit of bone motifs, like giant bridges and paths made out of bone, you know, bone, marrow, you know, but that's about it. The Deep Docks are a bit more interesting, being filled with lava and Captain Cutler looking motherfuckers, harvesting materials and forging what I can only assume are weapons of minuscule destruction. The far fields are a mix of that lush vegetation from the Mosslands, but throw in a bit of lava and death for fun. This is ant territory. Fire ants. And from what I know of these fucking bastards, these are some of the fiercest, meanest, most soul-crushing enemies in the game, and that tracks with their inspiration. But the Farfields have nothing on Hunter's March. This little string of caves, yeah, this is a test of whether or not you are enough of a masochist to survive Silksong. Naturally, my first playthrough, I wound up here really early before getting any nail upgrades or health expansions, so that was an experience, especially at the very end, past all the murderous ants with that one booby trap bench. Oh, you want to rest? You want to sit? You're grateful it's free? Guess what, bitch? It's not free. The price for this bench is a fucking spiked bone club swinging down and breaking your fucking face. The wormways are there, I guess. You know, at first I assumed that this was going to be our deep nest equivalent, but truthfully, it's just kind of mildly disgusting. You know, it's just basically a path up to the middle section of Farloom. There is a mad scientist dude here, but, you know, I don't really care about him enough to investigate his obviously unethical experiments, so we're out. You know, I've got enough problems without that wannabe Frankenstein getting on my damn nerves. Greymoor seems to be a fan favorite. I assume because it is so bleak and depressing that people are grateful that the game finally decided to be visually honest with its desire to beat all the fucking hope out of you. There is perpetual rain here that I'm not really sure why it's there. You know, for the City of Tears, it was from the blue lake in the cavern above, but all that's above Greymoor is the Wisp Thicket, which doesn't have any water as far as I'm aware. And Sinner's Road just has muck maggot infested water that's basically sewage. So, I guess what I'm saying is when you're in Greymoor, don't open your mouth to taste the rain. Greymoor's main tourist attractions: the Moorwing, who will claw your eyes out in 2 seconds flat, the Reaper's Tomb, frequented by weird scissor men who must be clock tower fans, and lots of windmills. You know, perhaps this is just some alternate reality of the Netherlands where it's really depressing and everyone's a bug. I'd happily take the wooden clogs over whatever the fuck this is, for the record. Thankfully, it's not just all gray fake skies in Greymoor. There's a little halfway home here that serves as a warm, cozy respite from all the dreary danger outside. Granted, they have a serious ant infestation in the basement, but you know, nowhere's perfect. Shellwood is also just kinda there. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's very pretty. You know, I dig how it's lush, but not in the same way as the Mosslands, with much darker greens and some gorgeous white flowers to spruce the place up, and also explode in your face. The white flowers low-key make me envision this as an overgrown version of the Queen of Hearts gardens from Alice in Wonderland. Now, Bellheart is my favorite town in the game, and dare I say, I might even prefer it over Dirtmouth. Bellheart serves as your midpoint on the journey, but when you arrive, while you can rest, you'll probably find that quite difficult to do around all the bugs strung up on silk and looking like they are auditioning for the role of the possessed child by a demon in The Exorcist. Naturally, you save Bellheart's residents from the control of this weirdo loser named Widow, freeing them all and getting a neat little violin skill as a result. Or a needle-in. Get it? Because it's a needle violin. Huh. Anyhow, this game loves some bell motifs, and I gotta say, having these giant bell homes hanging in midair, each one serving as a comfy little abode, is my bug dream come true. And you get your own with enough donations made to help prepare the town. This is perfect, I'm never going to leave here. The blasted steps serve as the final area before the Citadel, provided you're going the normal way. And yes, the fact that the pilgrims are expected to, after suffering through all the aforementioned hell zones, somehow climb up these rocks being swept in constant sandstorms, with face-eating sandworms below, and several enemies that belong in the bad place for how much they have gotten on my damn nerves, also convinces me that Farloom is absolutely expecting and hoping that everyone dies. And then, provided you are able to get past the gate and survive the last judge, you reach the elevator, the glorious Grand Gate elevator, ready to hoist you up into the Citadel. Or more likely, lower you down into the underworks to further prove your faith through hard manual labor. Giant saw traps that will squish you if you're not fast enough, one-time use benches where you have to pay each time you want to rest, and confessionals where you have to pay to be told that you suck. Yeah, this really feels like a pretty honest glimpse into early 20th century factory work before labor strikes, but you know, with some added Catholic guilt as a treat. The underworks aren't my favorite location in the game, but I do appreciate how it portrays the brutal exploitation of the pilgrims' faith. They've somehow managed to survive this long, arduous pilgrimage, and what's their reward? Even more dangerous, thankless work until their bodies give out. Doesn't sound familiar at all. Now, the Citadel. Girl, it's big enough to be an entire game world by itself. And what's more, I am very impressed that it manages to feel cohesive, yet with each area still feeling visually distinct. The coral chambers act as the main hub, bridging all these different areas together, which makes it one of the more sprawling environments. It definitely feels grand just with how vertical it is. I mean, just look at how tall these fucking rooms are, Jesus. It really reminds me of the way that church interiors, specifically Orthodox and Catholic churches, are always very tall buildings with all the high ceilings, and it's meant to inspire this feeling of awe and grandeur because it's supposed to be representing the heavens. Within the heart of the coral chambers is the cogwork core, filled with winding gears, heavy machinery, and a tinkerer's bop. This area, ooh boy, aesthetically magnificent, but also a platforming nightmare. By which I mean every time I come in here, I feel so confident in my platforming skills that I wind up making stupid mistakes that get me killed over and over and over. Weirdly, I have more issues with the platforming in the first room than I do with the platforming gauntlet up top. But maybe that's just because since it's a gauntlet, it requires you to mentally lock the fuck in. The Whispering Vaults serve as an archive for the Citadel's history, but instead of giant owl dragon demons protecting the knowledge we must acknowledge, we have mummies. Big mummies, skinny mummies, and flying mummies that chuck light bulbs at your face. The most interesting parts of these vaults are the creepy keeper who looms above, Trobio the ultimate theater kid, the secret path into Bilewater because Silksong thinks you haven't suffered enough. Oh, also, if you hear a child crying, run in the other direction. Leave the child to die. The Memoriam is meant to preserve samples of the ecosystems across Farloom, so you get a little taste of everything here. The lush foliage of Moss Grotto, the maroon coral of the sands of Karak, and a big dumb flea boy. And the high halls? Those are for the platforming masochists. Fuck that gauntlet is all I have to say. But it is very prettyful. Side note, when I first did this gauntlet, Chakra was helping me, but I didn't know Garmund could also help you here. The more you know. White Ward is pretty small, but it's among my favorite areas for its eerie, haunting atmosphere. This honestly scares me more than Deep Nest, because there's this feeling of malevolence hanging in the air, like an abandoned hospital in the Citadel, of all things. Knowing how they treated bugs here, especially when you hear the sound of a surgery on one of the cylinders, girl, get me the fuck out of here. The slab, insert Courage the Cowardly Dog joke here,
Return the slab.
is the Citadel's prison, and you can actually wind up here in Act 1 if you get caught by one of the warden flies across Farloom. I actually didn't get that sequence till my second playthrough, but the process of breaking free without any of your tools and then getting them back through a goddamn ceiling drop neck snap. God, I love Hornet. Just outside the slab is Mount Fae, a freezing hellscape that looked at the White Palace and said, what if we did that, but in Satan's freezer? This one requires you to die a lot to fully get to know the space and how to survive it. It's honestly one of the reminders of how these games require you to fail over and over in order to learn and succeed. Because not only do you have to scale all this treacherous terrain, you also have a time limit. Because it's so cold that if you spend too much time outside of a light source or a heat source, you freeze and die. Oh, also you get to slide down a mountain. Yay. The real evil move, though, is locking both the double jump and cold immunity behind reaching the mountain peak. How fucking dare you, Team Cherry? Look, just because you guys are from Australia and your continent is like hell came to life and is filled with horrifying creatures and environments trying to kill you, doesn't mean you need to make it our problem. Then we've got the upper right-hand corner of the map, my fucking beloathed. Have you ever wondered what the Hollow Knight equivalent of Silent Hill's Otherworld would be? No? Well, too bad, because it's Sinner's Road. Rusty metal platforms and spiked wheels? Check. A rude broken bench that requires you to endure treacherous platforming in order to just rest and get a checkpoint? Check. Muck maggot walker that slowly eats your silk and prevents you from healing? Check, check, check. Atmospherically, I'm here for it. But girl, fuck Sinner's Road. I hate navigating this bitch. And then, the Mist. It's actually a temporary area that requires your needle in to get through. It's basically just a fogged up, haunted version of Sinner's Road, which, you know, I guess would make this the true foggy Silent Hill, I suppose. Bilewater, the girl everyone hates. And, I mean, I hate navigating her too, but also I kind of have to admire how it commits to utterly breaking the player's spirit. Even more muck maggot water that's hard to avoid. Insidious traps, some of the most frustrating, vindictive enemies in the entire game, and horrific runbacks to even more nightmarish gauntlets and boss fights. I remember finally beating Grohl on my 42nd or whatever try, and then being pissed when I killed him only after 3 or 4 tries on additional playthroughs. Ah, memories. Also, fuck you, fake bench. But nah, I reserve my hatred for the putrefied ducts. This is what everybody thinks Bilewater is. The mosquitoes in Bilewater just lazily track toward you. The ones in putrefied ducts erratically dodge your attacks and then shoot you in the face with acid. That is objectively so much worse. And the hidden ceiling plants trying to eat you? The giant moss creature that charges at you when you're just trying to get your bearings? Tell me why Fleetopia had to set up here. Why? I get that the Pale Lake is gorgeous and serene, but the fact that I have to run through this terrible fucking room every time to get there, and there's no easy shortcut to go about it, fuck y'all. Fuck all of y'all. Oh, and there's also the sands of Karak, or whatever. You know, it's another area dedicated to time platforming, using these vanishing coral platforms to jump around above the infested sands. The coral aesthetic makes this one of the more visually interesting areas, especially contrasted against its desolation. You get a glimpse of the vibrant kingdom it once was in Act 3, and I really hope that Sea of Sorrow DLC gets into it a bit more. But I really do mourn that these more expansive, beautiful areas from the trailer had to get cut. I mean, I totally get the change for story and theme, but like, if that DLC doesn't give us something comparable to what was in those trailers, I'm going to hunt Team Cherry down myself. So, the full story of Silksong is left in a lot of details scattered across the game, just like Hollow Knight, again letting you put the pieces together yourself. But the main story of Hornet confronting the goddess who is after her power is clear. Other creators have covered the full story and history of Farloom in depth, and I am very much not a lore nerd, but you know what, I figured I might as well try to give a brief rundown and some of my thoughts here. If I'm wrong about something, I don't know, yell about it in the comments or whatever. Not that I need to tell you to do that. So long ago, in the before time, the spiders were chillin'. They were crawling, they were sprawling, not a thought for brawling. Then one day, Grandmother Silk showed them the light. And gave them sentience, transforming them into the Weavers. She framed it as a blessing, ascending the Weavers into a higher level being, capable of thought and wielding the power of silk. But of course, she actually viewed them as mere servants and underlings. Extensions of herself, the way a narcissistic parent would view their children as extensions of themselves. The Weavers decided thusly, "Fuck you, Mom, I'm my own person. I like rock and roll." And they rebelled, lulling Grandmother Silk into a prison of perpetual sleep. And then, after making sure that the ordinary bugs of Farloom would maintain this whole song and dance to keep Grandmother Silk asleep and out of their fucking hair. Did they have hair? Whatever. The Weavers all ran the fuck away to pursue their own spidery dreams elsewhere, including Hornet's birth mama, Hera the Beast. But of course, higher beings are petty and don't take being forgotten very well. You remember how the Radiants got pissed about that in Hollow Knight and lashed out with the infection? Yeah, that's what Grandmother Silk is doing here through the haunting. Influencing and even possessing bugs through her dreams to lose their shit and hit people. Part of this was a desire to bring the Weavers back to absorb their power, for Grandmother Silk to reclaim them as part of herself. And so bugs were sent out across the world to hunt down not just the Weavers, but also their descendants, including Hornet. And then there's Lace, who was created entirely from silk by Grandmother Silk, with the hope that she would be entirely loyal and never betray her, unlike the Weavers. Yeah, again, the whole idea of narcissistic parents, specifically moms, seeing their kids as extensions of themselves, that they don't get to be their own people and will be eternally infantilized to prevent them from developing into their own autonomous people separate from their mom's ego. Yeah, that's Lace. That's Lace's life to a T. Unfortunately, Lace views herself as especially weak and fragile because of this, and is jealous that Grandmother Silk is so desperate to get her claws on Hornet. Lace is suggested to be the one to free Hornet from her cage in the opening act through the silk flies she conducts, and is also trying to kill us before we get to Grandmother Silk. The normal ending has Hornet defeating Grandmother Silk, then absorbing her power, becoming the higher being who rules over Farloom in her stead. And maybe there's a nicer way to read this, but this one feels like a bad ending to me, where Hornet's own identity has been destroyed as the legacy of Grandmother Silk devours her, where instead of destroying this generational cycle of pain and domination, we end up perpetuating it by becoming the new perpetrator. Alternatively, you can work with the snail shamans to try and trap Grandmother Silk with the power of Void, only for Lace to fuck it up. Of course, this only worsens the haunting, and the silk already strewn throughout Farloom is now tainted with Void. All the areas in Act 3 become far more treacherous, with Void-empowered enemies that deal more damage, and masses of Void flesh that attack you and shoot you in the face. It is exactly as terrifying and disgusting as it sounds. Every now and then, you can also hear Grandmother Silk shrieking from far below as the area desaturates and shakes violently. Act 3 does such a great job at reinforcing the elevated stakes by making the environments far more hostile, both visually and through gameplay. You even lose access to the Bellways until you defeat the Bell Eater within. There's just so many additions in Act 3 that, as a lover of sad bitch hours, I deeply appreciate. Oh, and also descending into the abyss to figure out what the fuck is going on with Grandmother Silk and Lace, and then having to climb your way back out. Ooh, girl, ooh, it's burned into my memory for life. Is that a pun because lava is chasing me? Admittedly, as of writing the script, I have yet to actually defeat Void Lace, but I have seen the game's ending. And this one, where we get to see Lil Bro again, and Lace presumably gets to live outside of Grandmother Silk's control and influence, reads to me as a more optimistic ending. It's left open, but it feels like the characters have a chance now to finally pave their way without worrying about Grandmother Silk's need for control coming back to haunt them or Farloom. Maybe now, without Grandmother Silk influence or the need to keep her asleep, Farloom will actually get its shit together and not work its bugs to death. Or worst case scenario, we can teach them to start making guillotines out of shell shards. Hollow Knight and Silksong are dearly beloved games, and for good reason. This series is a masterclass in environmental storytelling, ambience, and telling a story that worms its way into your heart. Pun intended. I enjoyed watching my friend play through the original game, and I have loved finally giving it a go myself, and I suspect as the years go by, and our own world dances along the brink just as Hallownest and Farloom, I will enjoy venturing back into both kingdoms' depths time and time again. Lord knows I'll have to if we live to see a third game before the Third World War. Anyhow, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this from me, then be sure to subscribe and ring that bell for notifications because YouTube hates creators. And also, if you're willing and able, pledging your support, please consider pledging your support for myself and the channel over on Patreon. I'm the Unicorn of War, and good lord, oh my god, bile water. That run back was a shit show, man.